Drinkwater. I'm a community herbalist in Madison, Wisconsin. I work for a compounding pharmacy called Hoey Apothecary. I recently wrote a book called Herbs for Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome and Joint Hypermobility Disorders, and basically turned that book into this slideshow. So save your questions. If you have any questions, there will be a Q&A session at the end. Just quickly going to say that my colleague and friend illustrated this book for me, and I think she knocked it out of the park. So a little shout out to Joey Neal. So what is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome? Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a group of inherited or acquired connective tissue disorders that contributes to a plethora of health complications. If you have this, you know all about it. These are just some of the things that might go along with having connective tissue disorder. It's definitely not an exhaustive list. So if I left something out, sorry. I tried to keep it as concise as I could, and I'm at 66 slides. So if I'm going a little too fast, I apologize. If anybody would like me to send the slideshow, I'm happy to do that. And stick around if you have questions. I'll hang out after the recording is done to answer them. So joint pain, subluxations, dislocations, super common with EDS. Myofascial pain, so some people get misdiagnosed with fibromyalgia. Autonomic dysfunction, including POTS, so standing up, getting lightheaded, and fainting or almost fainting. Fragile tissues, including organs, mainly that's in type 4, where your organs could split. But we all have fragile tissues. We tend to have slow wound healing. Some people get frequent headaches and migraines. A lot of people end up with cervicocranial instability, like myself. Chronic GI issues, that could look like a whole lot of things. It could look like IBS, so alternating constipation, diarrhea, Crohn's disease, where you see a little bit more bleeding, heartburn, extreme fatigue, bladder issues. That could be incontinence, pain, frequent urination, frequent infections, or something that feels like an infection but doesn't test positively for infection. A heavy feeling in the pelvis. Obviously, hormonal imbalances that contribute to other things, PCOS, metabolic dysfunction, diabetes, endometriosis, PMDD. Many of us have compromised immunity, leading to more frequent infections. Most of the allopathic treatments for EDS involve physical and occupational therapy. Low resistance exercise, going for a walk, sometimes in the resistance pool or just in the regular pool. Strength training or Pilates is sometimes recommended by some practitioners if the patient is capable without causing more injury. I've been told repeatedly not to practice yoga. I've heard some people say yin yoga is okay. It really is individual, and use your best judgment. Some people have trouble with pelvic floor, like I said, where it feels like the pelvic floor is sinking. You might experience like a heavy feeling during your period or leading up to your period. Or just all the time. Sex might be painful. Even putting in a tampon might be painful. So pelvic floor therapy can help with a lot of these things. Maintaining a healthy weight and diet. And this is something in Western medicine that doesn't get talked about enough. Well, what is a healthy diet? That looks different for everybody. It depends on what you're allergic to, what your sensitivities are. It depends on where your people come from. What foods did your ancestors rely on? So for those of us like myself who mainly come from Northwestern Europe, beets, that's a big one. Just adding beets into your diet will be really, really, really helpful for your overall health. They say to take Tylenol and ibuprofen, which obviously if you are in chronic pain, that's not really a solution that can lead to liver issues down the line. This is a cocktail of drugs that they typically recommend for various symptoms that come with EDS and connective tissue disorder. I have taken every one of these drugs, and I can tell you that they worked for a time, but they tend to lead to more issues down the road, at least for me. I'm not trying to speak for everybody. So herbal options. This is more like, here are the forms that you could take your herbs. We'll talk more about the herbs. Long infusions. I'm a big fan of long infusions. It doesn't involve alcohol. It's basically taking a long tea and you're getting the minerals out of those herbs. you're getting a big dose of those herbs, a really strong, potent dose. Many of the herbs that I'll talk about are also foods, which means that they're safe. They're not going to interact with your medications. You could use them as a pot herb if you don't actually want to drink tea. You can sprinkle them on your food like a seasoning. You can cook some of them like a vegetable, and we'll talk about that too. Poultice is like you're using the plant material topically, or compress. Same idea. You can make a strong infusion, like a long infusion, and pour it into your bath water. You could do a smoking blend, particularly if it's mullein and there's a lung issue. If we have time, we'll talk a little bit about moxibustion. The first herb is agrimony. Agrimony is native to a lot of spots in the North America. I can mainly speak for the Great Lakes region, a little bit in the Northeast and a little bit down the South. You should be able to find agrimony if you are walking in a deciduous forest. So here's what it looks like all over the place. The first one is down south. Second one is in Door County. This one is very potent. Anything around the Great Lakes is going to be really potent. And then there's tall, hairy agrimony in Spring Green. This was actually at a nature preserve. So I don't see that one too often. Agrimony is really helpful with tissue states where you're really tense or you're really lax. Agrimony is particularly helpful for holding patterns in the fascia. You develop these holding patterns because you have postural issues or there's an injury, you're trying to protect yourself, you're trying to avoid having pain. Agrimony is a great remedy where we're in such pain that we forget to breathe. And these holding patterns contribute to the formation of trigger points. And trigger points are those knots that you get. A lot of people get them in their shoulder blades, behind their shoulder blades, between their spine. And these trigger points can cause referred pain in another part of the body that may not seem like it's related to what hurts at all. And then when you work out those trigger points, magically that pain goes away. Often these trigger points form because there's a B12 deficiency. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the mutations that make it so that you need a specific form of B12 in order to make these trigger points resolve. Some acupuncturists will do B12 injections at certain acupuncture points. Not all of them do it. They have to do an extra 1,000 hours of training. And it probably varies by state. So you can look into that. Agrimony, I use this a lot for bladder issues. So whether somebody's waking up a lot to pee at night, or if there is that prickly kind of painful feeling where it feels like you're getting a bladder infection, but you go into urgent care, they do a urine test and there's nothing in there. Oftentimes this is more of like a reflection of the emotions. Fear and fright are the emotion of the bladder. So if you've got PTSD, if you've been startled in a big way, that kind of lives in your bladder, and agrimony helps resolve that tenseness or floppiness that is in the bladder that causes that prickly pain. It can cause having to go to the bathroom 4 times a night when you should maybe only be going once. It strengthens the bladder muscle. So it really acts a lot on all sorts of urinary issues. It's also really great at protecting your aura. So every time that you've experienced some sort of insult, whether it's an environmental insult, you were exposed to a chemical, or it was an emotional insult, you got into a fight or somebody, bashed you on the internet, whatever the case may be, those little things leave holes in your aura, and agrimony is really great at patching those holes. This also extends to the dream world. It protects you in the dream world. Sometimes people have really powerful dreams when they're taking agrimony. Things in your life will kind of naturally start to go your way. It's a really, really neat plant, and it tastes good. It tastes like peach. It's in the rose family. It's very safe. Oh, and it also acts on pelvic floor issues. That's the whole bladder thing. So Matthew Wood, who's one of my teachers, and I'm sure many of you have heard that name, He uses agrimony for dislocation injuries in situations where there's a pinching sensation. In my experience, this happens a lot with the muscles that connect to the spine. So for me, I get a lot of tension and holding patterns along my spine. I'm sure I have poor posture. It can also happen if you have underdeveloped delts. Agrimony helps you acknowledge reality without running from it. You could use the flower essence or long infusions for this. We already talked about patching holes in the aura. It's also a great flower essence for people who feel that they need to hide and smile through their pain, which is a lot of us. If you're a caretaker, your needs come second, third, fourth to those around you. I'm talking parents, caregivers. If you run a business and you have to be on all the time, agrimony is a really great herb to drink as a long infusion or as a flower essence. Again, it helps you maintain strong boundaries, and it helps you deal with reality as it is in front of you. It's specific medicine for the Hun. The Hun is the dream spirit in Chinese medicine. This is the part of the soul that goes off into the dream realm and explores and gives you cool dreams, or bad dreams, or good dreams, depending on you. It anchors in the liver, so agrimony is often used as a liver remedy. It has a very social upward and outward energy that, whether you mean to or not, will often have you becoming more social. So if you're somebody who's really hunkered down in your house because you've been sick or felt like crap for a long time, this is a good one to start. It's also very specific for anybody suffering from addiction of any kind. It's not going to solve all your problems, but it kind of takes the edge off of cravings. So you could use this whether you're trying to quit smoking, trying to quit some sort of substance, alcohol, you name it. It really softens memories associated with trauma that may have led to that addiction, especially. I use it in my PTSD formula and my grief formula. Next herb is burdock. I'm sure you guys have seen this. It loves to live in my garden. It loves to pop up where I don't necessarily want it, but I need it, so that's why it's there. Here is burdock in its various stages of development. The first one is the first year burdock. The second year burdock shoots up this stem with the little purple flowers on it. Burdock acts on all sorts of different body systems. The liver, the skin, the lungs, the hair, you name it, the adrenals, the kidneys. It's a really great all-around nutritive herb. You can use all parts. All parts are medicinal and they're all safe. I will say that the roots, the first year roots, if you're going for the inulin, that's what you want. The second year root, it gets kind of spongy and it's not as good for medicine. The inulin feeds your good gut bacteria and it helps with lipid metabolism in the liver. It's often used as a detox remedy. This is a really good, I hear people all the time, you know, looking for parasite cleanses or detoxes. I urge you not to buy a boxed detox remedy off of Amazon. I would much rather see you look to herbs like burdock and agrimony to start that process. Again, you want the first year root. It will help to cleanse your lymphatics, your liver, your skin, your kidneys. It can help clear remnants of old infections caught in the lymph system that your body's been unable to clear. I use it for skin issues like psoriasis and eczema. There's other herbs that you could use in combination with burdock for that. And it's a liver alterative. Alteratives improve the function of an organ. In this case, it improves the function of the lymph, the liver, again, all those body systems I mentioned. In our case of EDS or joint hypermobility generally, if our ability to detox via lymph is not there, number one, we'll stop sweating. It compromises every other body system. If your liver isn't functioning well, your body's going to try to push toxins out through your skin. It will obviously try to push stuff out through your lymph system, but if you're not sweating, all of that stuff is just kind of hanging out in your body, and it will get stuck in your fascia, and it will get stuck in your fat cells, and it will make you feel like crap. And when you get that like toxic feeling, oftentimes that ends up showing up in your emotional state too. So some people feel like emotionally toxic, And that's a sign that, we need to start focusing on our own ability to detox. We need to let go of those things that we should not be holding on to, physically and emotionally. In traditional Chinese medicine, the liver controls the quality of the tendons, ligaments, and sinews. If the body becomes yin deficient, those tendons tend to dry up and become brittle, and they're more likely to cause pain, atrophy, tears. Yin deficient, so your yin is your cooling, nourishing fluids of your body, including your blood, synovial fluid, the stuff that lives between your joints, your saliva, your cervical fluid, your interstitial fluid, your fascia. Burdock supports the yin fluids of the body. It is also, this should be mentioned, it is, what's the diuretic? So it will make you pee. You don't want to take this at bedtime. You don't want to be up all night peeing. Same goes for dandelion. I like to blend dandelion and burdock for this reason, but always start with it in the morning. So you might pee a little bit, but it helps you make that good yin that will replace the stuff that you're getting rid of, if that makes sense. Much like agrimony, burdock flower essence encourages you to enforce your boundaries whenever toxic forces seek to invade your space. So this is why you'll see burdock growing in like brownfields and vacant city lots where a building was pulled down. I have personally used burdock as a mast cell stabilizer. You want to start low and slow with that. I have had a little bit of a herx from that, and that was using the tincture. Generally speaking, a tea of the leaves and the root will be gentle enough that you shouldn't experience that. I like to test things on myself and see what the limits are. So don't do what I do, just low and slow. Burdock is really great at helping the body assimilate nutrients that, maybe we can't fully use in our state that is deficient. So it has a lot of good minerals in it. It really helps you digest fats. It's great for anybody who's had a restricted diet for a long period of time, whether that's ARFID, food sensitivities, allergies, or anorexia. It's a traditional remedy for acne where there's oily but dry skin, especially cystic acne. That cystic acne that forms along your jawline is usually a reflection of your liver health. So burdock is really great at clearing that out and helping to kind of break down that scar tissue that's left over. I'm lucky enough that I live in Madison. We have a good grocery store here that carries burdock roots in the middle of winter. You can, if you have access to a place like that, even the dry herb is fine. Just take a little bit, throw it in your bone broth, throw it in your soup or your stew. Don't forget about it. You don't want it to end up in somebody's bowl because it's not very edible once it's been dried. The tea is very earthy tasting. It's not going to be your favorite thing if this is your first herb to try, but to me, it has a very mild, clean taste. Burdock definitely helps lift the feeling of heaviness that some EDS patients experience in their pelvic region. So kind of in a roundabout way, it helps with, if you've had painful sex, painful periods, just by reducing that downward pressure. It is a traditional remedy for joint pain. I think it's mostly the joint pain that's caused by uric acid crystals that get caught in the joints. In other words, gout. Gout can be caused by consumption of sugar, red meat, or alcohol. I'm sure there's other things that can cause it too. Let's see. You should be careful of this Herxheimer reaction I mentioned in passing. If you've got a history of Lyme disease, Epstein-Barr virus, long COVID, again, go be gentle with yourself, low and slow. 1 cup of burdock tea a day is fine. You don't need to start taking like 6 dropperfuls of tincture. What happens then is that burdock is like going in and it might be opening up your fat cells, and your body stores those toxins in those fat cells and it will dump them into your bloodstream. And if you don't have the ability to detox that stuff right away, it can make you feel like crap. So again, low and slow, always err on the side of caution, be gentle. I do think that there are some brands that skim off the inulin from their tincture. So again, tea is gentle. You're not going to be missing that inulin. I think some of the companies will skim off the inulin and sell it to the supplement companies, because you can buy inulin by itself in a powder off of the shelf at a supplement store. So black cohosh. Here is black cohosh in mid-bloom. You can see it kind of looks like these little baubles. Matthew Wood says that these little round things are a signature for pockets of cerebrospinal fluid that get caught in the fascia, especially after like an incident of whiplash, or if you've had a head injury, or if you just exist in this world with EDS. The root is mainly the part that's used. I'm sure that there are other uses for the seed head, which looks like a rattlesnake rattle, and you know, this was used as a snake poison remedy. So, but mainly we're just going to talk about the root. What this remedy does, I use small doses, so 1 to 5 drops at a time. It untwists and defurls those little pockets of cerebrospinal fluid that get stuck in the fascia and cause pain. You should also be careful when you are using this remedy. You want to take 5 drops or so on your tongue at most, and then kind of gently stretch, move your neck from side to side, maybe, you know, move it in a circle. You might get a few little crackles, and think about what you're feeling and think about what emotions are coming up when you're doing that, because those memories, emotional memories, are stored in your fascia, and when you release that fascial holding pattern, sometimes those memories resurface. This could be good, it could be bad. It might be happy memories, and it might be not so happy memories. So again, be gentle with yourself. Nobody knows you better than you. So if you're very sensitive to things, always start on the lower side. Even with black cohosh, maybe you start as a flower essence rather than the actual medicinal tincture. Again, whiplash remedy, it's really great for cerebrospinal fevers. So that could be like meningitis. If you had a really, really terrible high fever and stiff neck, this can be helpful for those chronic conditions that kind of linger after you had that fever. I use this for coat hanger pain and stiff neck that is common in POTS and EDS. Again, 1 to 5 drops, kind of stretch, try to flex your clavicles a little bit if you can, and oftentimes that loosens up your shoulders and your shoulder blades. Black cohosh is called sheng ma in traditional Chinese medicine. It's used to vent shingles and measles rashes in the early stages. So if you have shingles, this might help kind of bring some of that to the surface. This is what it's used for in Chinese medicine. It kind of clears the exterior, is what they call it. So it brings stuff that your body, that is starting to like descend into your body into a deeper level. It pulls it back out. If you've ever had shingles, you know that it really hurts. And it tends to flare up when people are feeling shame about something. So if you feel like guilty or shameful about something and you know that you have a shingles flare coming on, reach for the black cohosh, even if it's the flower essence. And again, try to forgive yourself for whatever it is that you're feeling ashamed of. You can use it for menstrual cramps, but it's very cooling to the uterus. So again, 1 to 5 drops is all I would do. You could blend it with some yarrow, maybe 5 drops of yarrow, to avoid that cooling feeling. I've had cramps, I've used black cohosh, 5 drops. I go later to touch my belly and it feels cold to the touch on the outside. Yarrow will kind of help make it so that that isn't giving you a cold uterus, as they would say. So this is definitely not a remedy for cramps every month. Like, you want to use this as needed, sparingly. Sometimes people use it for dull, achy joint pains. That probably, again, is very personal. It might work for some people. It may not work for others. Black cohosh is used in formula for inflammation of the fallopian tubes. This is a David Winston use. He uses it for postpartum pain and muscular pains in the pelvic region and thighs. So if your EDS causes that sinking, heavy feeling, this would be one for you to try. People that may be particularly helped by black cohosh are ones that have a tendency to end up in toxic, twisted romantic relationships, but that's not limited to romantic relationships. It could be a toxic work relationship or a family relationship. These people tend to have like a dark, broody depression where they're, Eeyore, like the rain cloud always follows them. Again, use with care if you have PTSD or CPTSD. Solomon Seal is really kind of the star of the show. I use Solomon Seal for just about every joint condition. It is a really amazing plant. Again, it's very native to the Great Lakes region. I'm sure it's up in the Northeast. I'm not sure how much it likes to live down south or out west of the Mississippi River. This one's kind of weird, though. When it comes up in the spring, which is when you want to harvest it. You want to harvest it after the first frost, when the ground's not frozen, but all the energy is still in the root. And when it's coming up out of the ground, it kind of looks like fingers coming out of a grave. So those little purple spots that you see are the first parts that come up out of the ground. There is a rumor that Solomon Seal is poison. I wouldn't eat the berries, but it's not poison. The root is used as a stir-fry herb, so don't worry about that too much, but we're just going to talk about the root. That's the part that I would say you should use. So again, I use this in EDS, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, osteoarthritis, joint pain for Lyme disease, fibromyalgia, psoriatic arthritis. Much like the agrimony, Solomon Seal adjusts tensity and laxity, particularly of tendons, ligaments, and sinews. It works a little bit differently than the agrimony. Acts more on the tendons themselves than the muscles around them. But you could use agrimony and Solomon Seal. That would be a really awesome combination where you have tense muscles and ligaments that are there because of holding patterns and causing you pain in your muscles and your joints. Solomon Seal is also a nervine, so if there's any pressure being put on nerves because of that, it really helps soothe that pain. It nourishes your joints, brittle bones, dry tendons, and ligaments. It really helps keep that that yin in your bones. So like if you're in anywhere really in America today, it's very, very cold out. And if you go outside and you bump against something, it feels like your bones are going to shatter. Solomon Seal is really great at preventing that brittle bone feeling. It soothes irritated nerves. It subdues nerve pain, whether the cause is pressure from a sublux joint, muscular involvement, diabetic neuropathy, or viruses like shingles and Epstein-Barr, which certainly complicate conditions like EDS and connective tissue disorder. You can use it topically. You can use the root itself, again, as a stir fry. I would just cut it up and throw it in there like you would any other vegetable. Not a bad idea to grow it in your garden if you live in an area where it will grow. Again, lubricates the joints and connective tissue. It's a kidney yin tonic. Oops. It helps to dislodge difficult to expectorate mucus stuck in the lungs. So if you have that dry cough where you know that there's stuff stuck to the walls of your lungs, but it won't come up, Solomon Seal is really great at dislodging that. And again, that can go hand in hand with a lot of chronic respiratory issues that EDS patients have. Much like burdock, it's a great source of inulin, so it's going to feed your healthy gut bacteria. One thing to note here, if you've ever had your appendix removed, one of the functions of your appendix is it stores inulin, food for your healthy gut bacteria. So if you don't have an appendix anymore, you need like a constant supply of inulin. So burdock, Solomon Seal, chicory, dandelion root, all of those would be really great sources of inulin. Solomon Seal speeds healing of injuries. You don't see this one in America too often, but there is something called Huangjing, which just means essentially black roots. The Jing means that it's black and it acts on the Jing aspect of your body, which lives in your kidneys. Huangjing is Solomon Seal that's been steamed. It's a Chinese practice called Paozhi that helps drive the action of the herb to the kidneys. It nourishes blood deficiency, one of the many conditions involved in EDS. Steaming Huangjing turns the root black. Again, so that is a signature for the Jing of the body, and that is the stuff that you were born with, the thing that you were passed down from your parents and your ancestors. So that can be ancestral trauma. That can be a tendency to be very vigorous in life. It could be any number of things that one of your family members has gifted you. But Huangjing is very chewy. If you find it, you can just nibble on it. It kind of tastes good. It's a little bit sweet. Solomon seal kind of has a sweet flavor to it, a sweet peanutty flavor to it. I think we covered all of that. I always like to tell people Solomon seal is safe for dogs. I extract it into beef suet and lard for dogs with joint, tendon, and ligament injuries or pain. I see a lot of dogs that have ACL tears now. I don't know if there's something food related that is causing this, or if it's 5G towers or whatever. I'm sure you guys have seen that 49ers thing where all of these 49ers players are being injured and there's some sort of tower right outside of the stadium. So I don't know if that is causing people to have more of these tears, but Solomon seal would be a great way to kind of offset that. Anyway, you can use that oil. You can use it on yourself topically. You could put it on your food. You could put it on your dog's food. It's a great remedy for all kinds of joint pains in humans and animals. Mullein has been very popular the last couple of years with wildfires and all of the things causing us respiratory ailment. So here is a stand of mullein in the Driftless region when we had those wildfires. I believe it was 2023 now. You can use these yellow flowers in olive oil for ear infections. I'm sure many of you know that. The stalk itself is very specific for the spine, as it is an EDS. Helps strengthen the spine, helps lubricate your spine so that things don't fall out of place. You can use all parts of it. Like I was just saying, leaves are for respiratory issues mainly. Flowers, ear infections. The mullein helps draw excess water out of the ears, so it's really good for swimmer's ear too. The stalk, really great for scoliosis. If you have any sort of ripple in your spine, then definitely mullein is your friend. If you are harvesting the stalk for medicine, don't get a stalk that is S-shaped. Just look for the straightest one that you can find. I've been told that mullein stalk, when it is cleaning up contaminated land, gets this S shape, or it ends up curved. So I'm just passing that along. But the spine or the stalk is really great for muscle pains from spine subluxations. You can combine it with spiderwort, which we'll talk about, for the best pain relief. The root is really underused. It's great for trigeminal neuralgia, facial nerve pain, bladder issues, trouble urinating due to inflamed prostate in men, but it can also be very specific for the sphincter in women, so incontinence, leakage, general pain, if you have pain in the nerves of your bladder and your urethra. I would definitely recommend using mullein as a long infusion tea. It makes for a great chai blend. If you have spleen issues, which many people with EDS do, it pairs really well with Chen Pea, which helps drain that excess bogginess that you don't want to hang out. So does cinnamon. Tastes great by itself, though. You could pair it with some honey or spearmint. You want to use 1 cup of mullein leaves to 1 quart of water. The fir repels excess water. What that does is it keeps water where it belongs. You don't want excess water that becomes phlegm to become congealed phlegm that becomes hardness, and then hardness becomes pain. And this, sometimes you can feel it if you go to give somebody a back rub if they have really dense fascia, where like you can't work your thumbs in because their tissue is so hard. You don't want that. That means pain. So again, you want to keep your phlegm moving. You want to keep your chi moving. You want to keep the water in your body where it belongs, if that makes sense. Only downside of mullein, you don't want to ingest those little hairs. It can be like inhaling fiberglass. So use a French press or use a really good strainer. It nourishes the lungs, the kidneys, and the spleen, and the relationship between all of those 3 things. It raises the spleen yang. In Chinese medicine, when your spleen is sinking, that's when you get that heavy feeling in your pelvis. Your limbs feel boggy. They feel heavy. A lot of people had this after COVID. You might feel droopy and floppy. You might fall down. Like all of that is spleen talking. So mullein is really great at helping with symptoms of prolapse. So that could be like your bladder prolapsing. It could be your uterus prolapsing or your rectum prolapsing. You don't want any of your parts falling out of your body, right? So mullein's really great for that. It's a great yin tonic. So again, helping your body retain its natural moisture, keeping your bones and your joints lubricated. It's a good source of silica. So you need silica to make healthy fascia and bones. It's a specific remedy for joint pain that gets worse with cold weather, like now. Now would be a great time to have a nice hot cup of mullein tea. Again, Matthew Wood recommends using mullein for joints that have been reset after a dislocation. Nettles. Nettles is super important. Ideally, you'll get nettles when it first comes up out of the ground in the spring. You definitely want to get it before it goes to seed or flowering, and definitely before it develops that kind of like tough, crystally appearance on the leaves. All parts of nettle are medicinal. It gently nourishes while removing toxins. It's highly nutritive. It's a great source of, like, if you don't want to take a daily multivitamin, nettles is a great ally. It's highly nutritive. It has a lot of the stuff that you need to keep your EDS at bay, or your joint pain, or connective tissue stuff broadly. It's got folate, which we absolutely need. When they say that you should have dark leafy greens, nettles is a dark leafy green. It's included in a lot of natural antihistamine supplements. So if you have seasonal allergies, asthma, food sensitivities, anything like that, this is a great one if you have mast cell reaction or activation. It cleanses blood, it nourishes blood and qi. It's great for metabolic disease, including diabetes and PCOS. If you have PCOS or you're helping a man who has a prostate, you want to use the root. The root is the part that's really helpful for clearing metabolized hormone. In women, I pair it with spearmint for this, and it will help to keep your hair where it belongs. So male pattern baldness, if you're a lady who gets chin hairs and you don't want to get chin hairs, the nettle leaf and nettle root and spearmint combination is really great for this. The sting itself is medicinal too. This is a process called urtication. So before, people back in the day, they probably still do this, in Scandinavia and Eastern Europe, they would keep nettles outside of the sauna, or birch. I've seen both used. And they would kind of tap each other with it before they got into the sauna. And nettles is very smart. It knows where to sting you. For me, this is on my knuckles, where my fingers meet my hands. And that's where I always get stung. And that's coincidentally where I have pain. So you can absolutely use the urtication as a healing thing, even though it kind of sucks in the moment. The seeds are really great if you have any sort of kidney disease. This could be related to EDS. It might not be. For any reason, using the seeds are great. David Winston has a line called Herbalist and Alchemist. They're the only ones that make a commercially available nettle seed tincture that I'm aware of. I use this in memory issues. I use it for concentration issues like ADD and ADHD or dementia. I've used it myself. I've had elevated bun before, so I know that it works for this, and seeds are underutilized. Inside of the urtication fluid in the hairs, you have histamine, formic acid, and acetylcholine, and 5-HT. So 5-HT is something that's on the pathway to making melatonin. I'm not going to go too far into that. Acetylcholine, you need that for cognitive function. So if you have mast cell reaction or activation, I don't know why I keep saying reaction, or you have a strong histamine response, you might experiment with nettles a little bit and see if this is going to cause a reaction in you. It might be something that you need further down the line and not right now. Generally speaking, again, it's used in a lot of natural allergy supplements. So even though it contains histamine, it should help you with the histamine response, the same way that taking histamines in the little blue tube that I can't think of right now. Anyways, I need some nettles. I have not had nettles since last summer, and it's showing. The leaves have all sorts of nutrients like we were talking about, including nicotine, which is a cerebrostimulant. I think nicotine is kind of unfairly demonized. I'm not saying go out and smoke a pack of cigarettes, but you do need it. Nettles is the only plant to contain choline acetyltransferase. That's an enzyme necessary for synthesizing acetylcholine. So again, it's very important for brain health and thinking of the right word, which I'm struggling with today. You need it for central and peripheral nervous system health. So if you have coldness in your fingertips and your feet, if you have redness, if you get numbness in that part of your body, that's all signs of peripheral neuropathy. And having nettles as a long infusion or even as a tincture, I always advocate for the long infusion when it comes to nettles. You get most of what you need out of it that way. But a tincture is okay if you're using it for allergy purposes. You really need that to help repair any nerve damage in your peripheral nervous system. Again, great source of folate. Folate is essential for people with HEDS and MTHFR SNPs, which people refer to as mutations. Really, it's just that our genes are changing in reaction to our environment and the things that we take in and the things that we don't take in. And so regardless, everybody needs folate. There is a difference between folic acid and folate. I often have to correct pharmacists about this. Folic acid is synthetic. Not everybody, especially those people that have certain MTHFR SNPs or mutations, can utilize folic acid. If you can't use it, folic acid floats around in your body and it causes issues. It causes hardened arteries. It can cause, it basically acts as a toxin, and you're still folate deficient. So it might contribute to causing neural tube defects instead of actually resolving them or preventing them. So always go for folate. The form that you're looking for is L5-MTHF, and it might be the long form. So just look for L5-MTHFF. Great way to get folate is to eat non-GMO beets every day. A lot of people that have other genetic mutations these days can't process GMOs. So having long infusions of nettles and non-GMO beets are awesome. So great combination for people. It improves the function of the liver, especially if you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It keeps your detox pathways clear and active. It inhibits your inflammatory pathways, increases the flow of bile. It's a potassium-sparing diuretic. And anything that acts on the kidneys, according to Chinese herbal theory, is going to help with asthma and allergies. So again, we know that we use nettles for allergies and histamine response. So it makes sense that it would help with asthma and allergies, as those are signs of the kidney health. It's nephroprotective, so it may slow the progression of chronic kidney disease. Nowadays, 1 in 7 Americans has undiagnosed chronic kidney disease. That's according to the American Kidney Foundation. So nettles, again, great ally. I use nettles in all skin conditions: psoriasis, rosacea, acne, eczema, anything where there's itching involved, especially. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you because I'm getting low on time, and I really want to get to spiderwort, which is one of my favorites. Nobody ever talks about it. You can find it on Etsy, but I can't vouch for the quality of that. It's really not commercially available at this point, but this is what it looks like. I think that this will be a great plant ally for people with connective tissue disorder broadly, anybody who's had a spinal injury. So the purple is a sign for the crown chakra, if you want to get woo-woo about it. The little tangles, those are a signature for both the ovaries and also the fibrils in the tangles in the brain that happen with Alzheimer's and dementia. That liquid that is coming out of the stem, that is the plant version of cerebrospinal fluid. So we can use this as a really powerful yin tonic. That's what this plant is telling me. It nourishes the brain by nourishing cerebrospinal fluid. This is the only plant that I know of that nourishes cerebrospinal fluid. I'm sure there's others out there, though. It soothes irritated, inflamed nervous system on a physical and emotional level. It repairs nerve damage to small nerve fibers, glial cells, and nerve receptors. It could be due to EDS, viral infections, chronic conditions like Epstein-Barr virus, multiple sclerosis, or it could be due to metabolic disease or dysfunction. It might improve cognition and nerve function in those with dementia, Parkinson's, and other movement disorders, including motor issues from PANS or PANDAS, which happens if you've had a long-term illness that caused a high fever. That could be Epstein-Barr, meningitis, you name it. The reason I say may is because there's not any real science on this yet. This is just me with my own experience and other herbalists that I know who have like sat with the plant and listened to it about what it could do for us. It increases the conductivity of nerves, an underrecognized pain, cause of pain in EDS. Any scar tissue that forms in your body, people with EDS, we're really good at making scar tissue because we lay down faulty collagen. So that scar tissue might impede electrical conduction along the nerves, and that feels painful. Ohio spiderwort may promote the production of healthy collagen and hyaluronic acid in the body. I believe it acts on the HPO axis, the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis. It might improve menstrual cycle mood-related issues and pain, and it may help those with COVID-induced menstrual issues, involving signaling between the brain and ovaries. So there's a slide in here. I thought I had it. I might later on. Where those little guys, the little green buds that you see that look like they have a little mouth that's opening, those look like the ovaries, and they look like the glial cells. So hopefully I have that slide in here. I think I do. There's a biotech company that's using spiderwort to repair spinal scaffolding after traumatic injury. The company's called Spiderwort. So they're also investigating spiderwort as a natural, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a lip filler. So if you want to have your face worked on, they're using it for that. It's a great remedy for when pain is breaking through into your dreams. It soothes irritated tissues, including the fascia as a whole. It may help resolve lingering memories related to emotional trauma that are hiding in the fascia. So for that reason, again, take it easy, low and slow. Start with a couple of drops if you're tincturing it. You can use this herb as food too. You can use the stems as you would asparagus. So if you're cooking them on the grill, just cook them the same way that you would asparagus. You could bake them. Any of those things are going to be good. You could also cut up the stem and the whole plant and tincture it. I tinctured mine in Everclear just because I didn't know if it would tincture best in vodka or Everclear. Usually you use Everclear for like resins and barks and stuff. But that sticky goo in the stems is kind of a wild card. Sometimes when you have something like that, it responds better to stronger alcohol. So again, I think that is a signature for the cerebrospinal fluid and possibly the cervical fluid. So overall, it helps you nourish your yin. If you're using it for nourishing your yin, you probably want to do it without the alcohol. You want to make spiderwort soda, which is basically like spiderwort kombucha. You want to have it as the asparagus. Again, consume it more as food than relying on the alcohol. It also regenerates neural tissue. It may protect those people who are sensitive to EMFs, especially if headaches are an issue. If you started getting really terrible headaches when they put up those 5G towers, this might be a good ally for you. If you have any sort of spinal stiffness, spiderwort has helped me a great deal with that spinal stiffness. If you've been on your feet all day and it's just like, oh man, my back is just stiff, it works like a charm within 15 minutes. It helps instill a sense of wholeness between the body and spirit. It helps the mind and body connect, and it increases your awareness. So your bodily awareness, like what am I feeling? Where does this feeling live? Why am I feeling this feeling? It really helps you kind of connect the whole picture. Here's that slide I was talking about. So these are the glial cells. Obviously, you can see these little purple stems coming off. To me, that is communicating that the purple flowers become, or the purple little pod things become the purple flowers, and those are glial cells. So I think there will be some science coming out on this eventually. Shilajit, this is one of the most important herbal thingies, because it's not really herbs, it's a mineral resin. It looks like this. It looks and smells like tar. You use about a grain of rice size amount in a cup of water, like you see here. It does not look appetizing, but this is a signature for your blood and your jing. And so this will help you make healthy blood. And when you have that healthy blood, it nourishes all of your organs. Additionally, Shilajit is really great at upregulating all of the genes that code for collagen production in your body, whether it's cartilage, connective tissue, bones, ligaments, tendons, you name it. And here is, I've fed it to the bees to see what they would do. And they got really hyper. So there was honey on top of the Shilajit, and the bees were just kind of chilling out, having the honey. And then it got to the Shilajit at the bottom, and they got really hyper. It's very energizing. Oops. It is a complex macromolecular organic and mineral metabolic product of aerobic microorganisms created through the decomposition process of plant matter, lichens, and resins. They find it way up in the mountains, where it seeps out from between the rocks on hot summer days. It's considered a rasayana in Ayurvedic medicine, and that is an herb or substance that encourages vitality, restoration of health, and rejuvenation, even if you're in old age. This substance has just about everything that you need to survive. This could be a good famine food. It's probably not going to give you everything that you need, but pretty close. It is an adaptogen, so it helps you cope with stress. It is also radioprotective, so if you are sensitive to 5G, like I was saying with the spiderwort, Shilajit will also be one of your allies. It's an extremely potent source of micronutrients missing from the standard American diet. It's 60 to 85% fulvic and humic acids, depending on where you're getting it from. Fulvic acid binds toxic substances like pesticides, herbicides, solvents, heavy metals, and other chemicals that may contribute to genetic polymorphisms or mutations that cause EDS to develop. So basically, you might have EDS because 2 generations ago during a war, your grandfather was exposed to some sort of solvent or chemical. And then maybe your father had, or your mother had some sort of condition going on that was mild and not really, didn't need any sort of medication or anything. And boom, you're born, and now you have EDS. In addition to the fact that we started, enriching our food with iron and folic acid that we can't use, we have all these other things that are going on in our society that are contributing to the development of these things. Fulvic acid also blocks tau fibrils from tangling. That's one of the causes of cognitive impairment and dementia. It helps to lift brain fog. So again, same as the spiderwort. If you're one of those people who has that MTHFR mutation, that means that you're likely to develop dementia. This and the spiderwort, you might want to consider starting. And hopefully you can see how all of these issues kind of come together and form a complex condition. Humic acid is a major component of healthy soil. It improves leaky gut. It encourages healthy gut bacteria. It improves nutrient absorption, and it helps drive oxygen deeper into the cells. So again, we were talking about scar tissue and how that causes pain. Oxygen doesn't really get driven into that scar tissue very well, and that's part of why it is painful. Shilajit has just about all of the vitamins and minerals that you could possibly need. It's also a good source of trace minerals like selenium. You need that for your thyroid. Strontium, copper, manganese. A lot of people with EDS have a copper deficiency. You need strontium for building bones. It has all of these amino acids in it. It increases the gene expression for the collagen genes, like I said. It provides the micronutrients that you need for healthy connective tissue. It upregulates type 1 collagen, which forms the matrix of connective tissue. This encourages quick healing of fractures, wounds, subluxations, and dislocations. I have seen Shilajit heal a pelvic fracture in an 81-year-old alcoholic within a couple of days, to the point where they sent the man back to get another x-ray because they weren't convinced that he had fractured his pelvis at all. So how this works is it tells the body to deposit minerals back into the bones. And at its core, EDS is a complex condition of deficiency. Shilajit provides the nutrients necessary to temporarily relieve aspects of this deficiency for as long as supplementation occurs. And again, it's radioprotective. So if you're sensitive to electromagnetic radiation, whether that's Wi-Fi, power lines, radiation, therapy, whatever, this is your friend. There's a lot of crappy Shilajit on the market. So, and I swear they don't pay me, but I know the people that run Banyan Botanicals. They make a really good tablet form of Shilajit that works well. If you're sensitive, I would say the dosage on there is 2 tablets a day. You would probably want to cut it down to half of one if you're sensitive. You want to drink a lot of water when you're taking it because it binds to toxins and you need to get them out of your body. For the same reason, consider taking Shilajit with a fiber source. That could be mushrooms, it could be beans and rice. It could be that you use it with a little bit of clay, whatever works for you. There is a lot of uric acid in Shilajit, so if you already have gout, don't do this one right away. And I don't remember where I got this graphic, so I'm sorry for stealing it, but I think it's a really great representation of how Shilajit works. So it starts by nourishing your Jing or your Qing. Again, that is rooted in your kidneys or your root chakra, and it starts cleaning things there, and then it slowly pushes toxins and memories and stuff up your spine, and eventually this becomes your vital life force, your Qi. And eventually that becomes your Shen, your spiritual energy. So when you look at religious paintings like Jesus, you'll see, that ring of light around his head. That is your Shen. That was his Shen. So Shilajit increases your Shen, which means that it makes you more spiritually powerful. It rebuilds you little by little. I've seen this particular substance turn people from, GMO potato face to statues that are carved out of marble. It's really amazing. And here's yarrow. I'm going to quickly go through this one. Yarrow is an affinity for the blood. I use it in any condition where there's blood stasis. So if there's stabbing pain, that could be menstrual cramps. It could be stabbing pain from stagnant blood, especially like in your scalp, in your back, going down your spine. It helps with blood circulation. I use it for all cases of endometriosis. I use it for PMDD and PMS, anything where there's blood clots. We use the flower essence in student clinic for oftentimes people who are surrounded by death all the time, EMTs, doctors, you name it. It strengthens your aura or your Wei Qi. It moves congealed blood where there might be congealed blood putting pressure on nerves. You'd also use it where there's trouble drawing a deep breath, where there's air hunger. It helps open those little air pockets in the lungs. It's also used for altitude sickness. I use 10 drops a day, every day, and if you do this for long enough, you'll notice that it helps with your cramps and your pelvic floor pain. It's also great for interstitial cystitis, mainly in the intestines. Breaks up bruises. That helps to avoid scar tissue. It heals cuts quickly with minimal scar tissue, and I have seen this work multiple times.